What's up, Silas here. This is going to be a Sunday over here video. I haven't posted in quite a while, almost 3 months now. Might actually be over 3 months. But I'm going to get back to some regular posting, and I'm going to start with this series of that I had kind of left off the Sunday over here, where I just read a paper of wherever I am on Sunday. And I'm back here in Nairobi, Kenya. I was in the United States of America. Part of the reason I'm actually going back to this one is I was visiting a friend who actually I met through creating YouTube videos. And this was a series that he really liked, and he said he liked kind of listening to these. So let's see how this one goes. I'm just going to go over the two headlines on the two major papers here in Nairobi, Kenya, the Sunday Nation and the Sunday Standard. It's for the Standard newspaper and the Nation newspaper. On Sunday, they add the Sunday to it, and it's kind of like this the week in review thing. So I'm going to go over the headlines, might turn through the pages a bit. I'm going to challenge myself to get to 33 days of posting daily posts. Even if it's just a small post, some of the posts will be things of me getting things from the past that I had recorded as I work my way back into a regular posting schedule with the new ideas and the new plan I have in mind. And for those of you who are still subscribed to me, thanks for kind of just hanging through this time of me not posting. For people who are new to my channel, welcome. And let's see what happens these next 33 days. But now let's get into the actual readings. Okay, so I have been back in Nairobi for a couple of weeks now, and I haven't been paying too much attention to the news. And so let's see what's going on in Kenya, in Nairobi, or at least let's see what the newspaper thinks is worth telling you that's going on. Because I have been paying attention to United States politics, as some of you may know who are regulars here on my channel. I spent a lot of time in my life living there, and most of my friends are there. And I am very interested in the politics and some of the things going on there. Right now, there's a lot of things going on with this Judge Kavanaugh trying to get confirmed to the Supreme Court of United States of America, and the world is watching this thing very closely with the issues there, the way the media covers this. And there's this whole fake news thing in the media, and I've been talking about this in my channel on several videos, and I think it's more like fall news, where it's not necessarily fake, but it's fall as in F-A-U-X, false, fall. So it's kind of a thing where it's like, okay, what is being presented to you? In most cases, they present to you enough truth, and then there might be some nugget in there of falsehood. Now, does that make it false all in all? I don't think so. It makes it fall. Like, is it actually news? It's kind of like the fall turkey, where it's like the soy food, the turkey made out of soy, where it tastes like turkey, but it's not really turkey. So they're using this kind of thing where it's actually substance. You're actually taking something in with that soy protein or soy, whatever it is. It's made to seem like turkey, it's made to feel like that, and you still get some nutrition out of there, but then it's not going to be exactly the same as just taking in meat. You're going to be getting the negative effects from soy that are coming out with soy boys and things like that, where it's like higher estrogen and things like that. They say soy milk. Soy is not milk. It's not. There's no teat, so there's no milk coming out of it. And why do they say teats when it's animals, but when it's humans who are also animals, they don't say teats. They say tits. Anyone kind of go? If you called a woman's breasts teats, would they be really offended? Or there's probably some biological actual thing to why it's different. But digressing. So this is what they choose to be news. And I've had this kind of thing where it's like, okay, I'm living in different places, and I understand why some people in the United States of America are not interested in the news there, because I have had the experience of living in a country, like right here, I'm living in Nairobi, but I really don't pay attention to the news. So I do understand that whole thing of living in a country and not paying attention to the news. Yet, I still think we should I should do better when I'm here, definitely, to actually know kind of the general things that are going on, even if it's just for my general knowledge, but just being around, kind of talking to people and things like that. But just to know, because hey, there might be like some coup all of a sudden coming up. I know in America, they're like, oh my God, the country's crumbling. I'm like, no, it's not. But in some other places, some things could actually happen that are really, really rough and whatnot. But let's get into this. We're going to go to the Sunday Nation first. And here we see with the Sunday Standard. But let's go to the Sunday Nation. Just another quick thing. Walking around here in Kenya, I see this often. You see, like, she's wearing a Steelers hat. Now, she could have lived in Pittsburgh. It's like TV host arrested over brutal killings. Dramatic turn in murder probe as police lock up and prepare to charge journalist whose fiancé is a suspect after finding evidence at her house that contradicts statements. So this is Jackie, I think that would be Jackie Maribe. Um, in custody, Joseph Irungu killed Monica Nyawira Kimani. And the motive for this is why? Was it money, love, rivalry, or deal gone bad? Excuse me, there's a road close by. Let that pass by a bit. Let me close the window. So maybe that'll help the next time a vehicle passes by. Apologies for that. Evidence. Forensic homicide detectives and analysts test samples from scene of crime and vehicle. And this is another thing. I'll get to this when I get to the end. Statements. Alibi. Police look out for contradictions by the suspects as they seek more witnesses to record their version of events. Now, this is a situation where I don't see there's a lot less at stake because they have a lot at stake in their own lives. They're going to go to jail. It sucks for anyone. For me, once I figured out what jail was when I was a kid, I was like, I'm not going to commit any crimes because jail sounds horrible. It sounds horrible. Just the whole not being able to do what you want to do, which is the odd thing. It goes bigger to this whole idea of socialism and communism, where somebody selects what you're going to do with your time and tells you this is what's needed. I like the freedom. I like that kind of thing. But anyway, so look, motive is needed, evidence is needed, statements are needed. So this is the kind of situation where when you're looking at the current court case in the United States of America with the Supreme Court with Mrs. Page, I think her name is Page, and Judge Kavanaugh. Mrs. Page accused Judge Kavanaugh of having been at a party when they were like 15 in the same area, Montgomery County, Bethesda, DC area where I went to middle school and high school. So when she was talking about the places, I listened to that testimony. It was like, hey, these places sound familiar. Like, these are places, I was kind of picturing these places. Those kind of summer parties she was talking about where you go to somebody's house, the parents would be gone, and because parents still had 9 to 5s. They were still working. But you have 3 months off in the summer where kids are just at home. I mean, you go to summer camps and things like that, but kids are already drinking at this age. You have a situation where drinking is illegal, war on drugs, yet you have these people who are making these laws, these adults, kids are drinking in their homes. So anyway, but you were talking about this situation where she was pushed into a room, the accusation was that Judge Kavanaugh, let me not say Judge Kavanaugh while he was a boy, and she kept saying Mr. Kavanaugh, but he was a boy at that time, if this allegations actually happened. Him and another boy pushed her into the room and then started kissing her, held his hand over her mouth while she was struggling, and then started groping her. And then she managed to get out, push him off or something, then run out of the room into a bathroom. Then they left. This is the accusation. Now, what are the motives for her doing this? Yeah, people say there's no motives at all for a woman to lie about sexual assault. Now, there has been many proven cases of women lying about this. So there definitely are motives. There's motives from the Democratic Party saying that, yes, we definitely are going to block any nominee and do whatever we have to do. So there are motives there. But the key thing here is evidence. There is an assumption of innocent until proven guilty. And this is the evidence needed. What is the evidence that Ms. Page has against Judge Kavanaugh? And they're going to positions where they have Judge Kavanaugh's calendar from when he was a kid. His parents kept the calendar and saying, like, look, he's not there, like he wasn't there at this time, he's doing something else. But kids lie about calendars. I've told my parents before I'm going to be somewhere where I'm not. You've written down something on your own calendar and then not actually shown up at that place, not because you're trying to like hide something from the cops, but just because you just happen to do something else. So people wouldn't write necessarily on a calendar, going to go to this party where there's going to be underage drinking. They wouldn't write that on the calendar. But anyway, so now what is the evidence? So in this case, they still need evidence to find that when evidence changes, people change. Alibis, I already talked about that with the calendar. So, I mean, these are the kind of things I'm thinking about, and this is the process. That is the process that you need to have a working, civilized society. You can't just have lynch mobs going out. And I just heard a story about an actual lynch mob that occurred out north that was a few days ago. I don't know if it's going to be in this paper, but it was a few days ago. Some Muslims had an issue where some extremists, this is on the border of Kenya, which borders Somalia up north, there was an issue where they had some militants were apparently killed by some security forces. The Muslims in that area apparently knew some of those militants. They were angry about the situation. They were talking to the police and the authorities there to get some kind of retribution for it. It did not occur. So they actually took got together in a mob, took some stones, found some three Christian construction workers out there, and started attacking them. They ran into this building, they were followed in there, and they were stoned to death. So that kind of lynch mob action is actually happening in the United States of America in ways from people mostly on the political left. I've seen similar things on the right, but it's definitely more something on the political left. And I also say losing your livelihood, your job, is a lot better than losing your life. But those things are connected, especially when it comes to for men. This is a situation they target men, and men are defined a lot more by what they do than who they are. So it's like what they do, and I know there's a whole thing like a man of their word, but their job and their things like that, themselves as a father, themselves as an ex profession. You're not just going to be like, oh, you're just a man, that's good enough. In most cases, their identity is very tied to that. I think that's why you see very high suicide rates when men get divorces, or if you lose a job or something. I think they have higher suicide rates to that. But anyway, so what I was getting at with that was just that lynch mob mentality. It needs to stop. And it has been slowly building up in society. I've been watching a lot of things in general Western society by living in the United States of America, being in that online sphere of information, seeing the false accusations, or seeing things like, oh, you just accuse somebody, they lose their job. You don't really have to have evidence. Even if it comes out later that nothing really happened, the person who has made the accusation, if they didn't go to the courts, if they didn't go to the police, to police and file a charge, then they don't really get any, there's not really any, retribution or any punishment for making a false charge. Even if it is proven that they knew it was false, they knew the person wasn't there, and completely just lying about the situation, that's the situations where they haven't received any punishment for that. It actually gets to a situation where it's like, oh, it's still okay. It's raising conversation. It's raising an important thing that people need to talk about. No, it's not. It's decaying society. It's a cancer. It needs to be stopped. We need to nip that in the bud, because now you're seeing it at this level, and I think a lot of people are realizing like, hey, this is actually pretty bad because it's being put on such a public level. So this story, I think it's the same story that's being talked about here, so we'll hit that up again. But let's see what else is going on here. So consumers feel pain of high prices. So effects of fuel, tax, and basic goods begin to bite despite plagued by steak. Now, this is one thing I think I've discussed before, moving from different countries, where it's like here, like fuel's in gallons instead of liters. No, it's in gallons in the United States of America, it's liters here. So it's like a liter is like 3.5 gallons or something, so prices are different. So when I move around to different countries, sometimes seeing different prices kind of throws me off. I've got to do the mental calculations in my mind. Some things will be really expensive here, like I've discussed this, an avocado, which is like the size of my hand pretty much, will be like 50 cents, can be like 50 shillings, which is like 50 cents in the United States of America, whereas an avocado like this size, like maybe even smaller, like my fist maybe, this smaller will be like $3 in the United States of America. It's ridiculous. I don't buy avocados in the US. But some of those things throw you off, just how you're kind of planning and looking at the world, what you're going to be spending, how much you're going to be charging for doing different things, like I freelance design and things like that. So there's some kind of thing that happens there that's just something on traveling. Okay. Power of Kenya's deep state. So these deep state things coming out, and now with the whole discussion with what's happening with Kavanaugh, there's talks about deep state being involved in this whole thing. They're really against him getting in there, so they're all these conspiracies about who's connected to who. I saw this thing about Peter Zork, who was an FBI official, high FBI official, who had a recent hearing where it was just another mess. He was supposedly involved in the deep state, but he's like 3 people away. It's like Paige's husband's wife or someone is related to somebody. Oh, Zork, so people are putting these 2 things together, and you don't really need all that. And this is the whole thing I was talking about. The worst thing than any conspiracy is that there is no conspiracy. It's better that there is a deep state out there meddling with things versus people just thinking like, hey, this is actually the best that we can do. But at the same point, I would rather, even if it's just the best that we can do, it's not as negative as people might think, because, hey, it's the best that we can do, that means we can do more. And I think that's the thing that you wonder. What do you guys think out there? If there is a small group of people really holding us back from being better, is that easier to fix? Do you target these people, remove this small piece, versus just people just don't know better? People just don't know that they can do better, and then you're now convincing more people to be involved. Which one is worse for you? I'm thinking I just want to know if there is a deep state. I do not doubt there is a group of people behind the scenes trying to do things, but I don't think it's some really deep Illuminati type conspiracy things. We'll have separate videos about that stuff. Anyway, so unmasking the invisible hand that controls things behind the state. So this is the thing. I might read that. That might be something I read later this week when I talk more about the whole deep state kind of things and things that I'm seeing and the effect I think that has. And this is a term that's been there. Some countries have something actually just called shadow government. That's not necessarily deep state, but something that's kind of supposed to what's it called? Supposed to be the shadow the government. So the government's moving. I think it happens in the United Kingdom. So the government is doing one thing, but the shadow government is kind of a group of other politicians and people and interested minds who, let's say the main government makes a policy. The shadow government says, if we were in control, we would have done it this way. So they're kind of shadowing them and following them and kind of keeping them accountable in a way. Now, deep state is different. Deep state is like the person pulling the strings behind the back. Like the government's doing something, and then the government receives a phone call, and then it's like, okay, you need to stop doing that, or something like that. Or the government is walking, trying to open certain doors. The deep state's like, we're locking this door. You can't walk in through this door. You have to use this. So that's what deep state kind of does for people who haven't heard of that term. But if you've been paying just basic attention to the media, that should be a familiar term to you. Okay, officers trial exam cheating masterminds. Is it trail or trial? Trial. Oh, it's trail. Officers trail exam cheating masterminds. Yes, sorry. Okay, officials target suspects in 6 hotspot counties as council moves to protect tests. Now, there's a big thing with testing here. I'm not really too pleased with the direction some of the education system is going here in Nairobi, Kenya, in Kenya in general. They have this thing where I think the influence from the British system, from being a colony of the United Kingdom, you have boarding schools at very young ages where kids are sent off to schools. And there's been, every year there's a time when school fires kind of spike up. This is around the tests. There's a lot of pressure on the kids for this. The kids, of course, are away from home. They're sent to these boarding schools. Some of the actual conditions in these schools, as you can imagine, are not too positive, especially for most of my Western listeners. If you hear about the conditions there, you'd be shocked. That's the type of things that you go through. It's tough enough when you go to college and you're out there if you haven't lived away from home, but this happens to kids who are in middle school, the equivalent of middle school, standard 5. So this is middle school. I think that's 9. No, that can't be 9 years old, can it? Wow. I don't know. I need to double check. But yes, very young kids get sent away from home for about 9 months a year. It's an 844 system that normally goes where you have like 3 months and a month off, 3 months and a month off, 3 months and a month off. That's kind of how the system is here in Kenya instead of the system of having that whole 3 months off in the summertime, which again, I've mentioned before, but for those who don't know, the 3 months off in the summertime in the United States of America was created because kids used to have to go and help with harvesting in the summer to farm the food. The parents were also home at that time. A lot of people were still involved in farming, yet that has just been carried on because the system just doesn't want to change. And I think some people, administration, and some of the teachers and adults really benefit from having that time off where they can spend with their kids in the summer. If you had a job that was like, we're going to give you 3 months off in the summer, not too many people would be really agitating for that system to be taken out. Okay. So right here, Ruto behind rebel MPs, said ODM. Now, Ruto is the vice president of the country, and in my previous Sunday Over the Year videos, I've been talking about how there was a rift between the vice president and the president. Ever since in the first series of this Sunday Over the Year, I talked about the story where President Uhuru Kenyatta had a handshake with Raila Odinga, who's the head of the opposition, and they came to a deal behind closed doors, and Ruto was kind of out of that. Now, Ruto was thinking, I think he was going to be the next person to be president. Now, Raila Odinga has had this handshake, and now he's positioning some of his people, and he's kind of trying to say, can he finally get in there? Raila Odinga has run for president more than anyone in Kenya, and of course has more losses than anyone in Kenya. But I think if he doesn't get in this next time, in 2015, it's done for him. I mean, he's getting very old. I think might be close to 80. But yeah, I think this might be his last-ditch effort. So from what I'm seeing here, Raila ally, accuses deputy president of secretly fanning chaos during fuel tax debate and seeking control of Jubilee and NASA legislators to wreck handshake and boost 2022 plan, but Ruto's office denies claims. So 2022, 2015 was already in the past. What am I talking about? So yes, 2022 is when the next election is going to be, and he's trying to get in there. Now, NASA was the people on the side of Raila Odinga. That was the coalition that Raila Odinga, which you can say here, Raila, was head of. And people on that side were also worried. So there was a lot of dissent, and people now, musical chairs of people wondering where we're going to be sitting now once that handshake occurred between Raila Odinga and the president, Uhuru Kenyatta. So let's go now to the Sunday Nation. So right here again, and you see this is what I'm talking about. These are two main newspapers, and I know some people choose to listen to one paper or the other. Now, these papers aren't as split as I would say like Fox News and CNN or MSNBC, where it's like left to right. But are these truly the main stories going on? So I'm sure these are profit. These are companies that go for profits. So they have their ways of going and knowing what is the most important. What are people trying to understand? But you see the cheating is here, the cheating is here. The TV hosting. So some of the stories are the same. So how do you know these are the top stories? Because one thing that really frustrates me is when I'm watching the news, even here in Kenya, there's about 4 or 5 main channels. The Citizen, KBC, which is Kenya Broadcasting Company, KTN, which is Kenya Television News or something, or Kenya Television Network. I already said Citizen, I think. What's the other one? NTV, which is Nairobi, it's National TV, NTV, National Television, Nairobi Television, something like that. And one of them is actually, I think some of them have connections with the newspaper. I think it's NTV that's connected to the Standard. But anyway, you go through their 7 o'clock news or their 9 o'clock news, and the headlines are pretty much the same. When they come to the whole like reporter pieces, like op-ed pieces, they'll have like something different, but it'll usually be the same stories, told in pretty much the same way. And I kind of wonder, you see that also with the 24-hour news networks, CNN, MSNBC, Fox. It's the same stories. And like, is nothing else really going on? So even just on the fact alternative media, even if they're telling you a less biased or at least if they're a lot more open about their bias, there's a situation where they're at least telling you other stories that you may not be able to find on this. And there is actually a pretty, I think, up-and-coming environment all over the world where you're having alternative media sources. But anyway, so cheating. 19 held in KCSE, KCPE final push. Marquette students arrested as KNEC and state agencies step up security measures, including countrywide visits to centers by top government officials ahead of the start of tests in a month. So that's just to make sure people aren't cheating and things like that. So, okay, let's see if there's more information about this murder here, because this is the big case, the big story here. So Maribe locked up. Suspect in murder. After 3 rounds of questioning, detectives last evening decided that TV anchor Jackie Maribe will face charges as an accessory in the gruesome killing of Monica Kimani and detained her at Gigiri. So the testimony. Police found contradictions in her statements and believe she did not tell the truth. Evidence. Police found burnt clothes and ashes behind her house, which they believe hold clues. Weapons. Police found a gun in her neighbor's house. Earlier, they retrieved a bullet from under her bed. Monica link. Police find a handbag in Maribe's house, which they believe belonged to slain Monica. So the parallels and the ironies in Monica's death were both Monica and her alleged murderer, Joseph Irungu, pictured left, are children of preachers. They both had high-flying, questionable lifestyles, and Irungu provided security for Jubilee Party politicians at the last polls, which Maribe highly reported on. So, no, but that's okay, parallels, so that's parallels with that. But anyway, so this is another thing with the crimes, this whole idea of the deep state. Now, if there is a deep state, or if there is an Illuminati level of organization out there committing these massive crimes and, systems and conspiracy type things behind it, for me, it's just, people aren't that capable. You're assuming people are a lot more capable than they are to keep these things secret. When you see these situations of murders, most situations where a murder occurs, I think most situations, even if you plan, you find ways to be caught. And even with that kind of system, but with that system, it's not like a CSI type thing where you see the show CSI and they have the access to the top technology and they find this thing is very formulaic. You kind of pass through and people think like, oh, if somebody's been arrested, they've gone through a CSI type system. They have every police station has a CSI level of lab where they can actually find all this evidence. Now, it's still hard to find evidence, but people themselves are also not really capable of hiding this stuff. So people are not capable at maybe finding out the actual evidence, but people themselves are not really that capable at actually hiding what they've done. So I think these things kind of even out, and to have these massive global type of conspiratory type of groups, I just don't really put enough faith in people's ability to keep these things hidden because of the amount of people that would have to be involved to run some of these things. Someone is going to leak. Someone is going to snitch. Someone is going to just do something wrong, have some kind of fiance or some girl on the side, or go and boast to some friend, or do something, write some notes, send something somewhere, and you will find actually what happened in most cases. So anyway, why you have nowhere to hide your money. Government intelligence. The financial sector has not been spared on the keen eye of the state, which has now roped in your bank. I saw this something with a bank. It was talking about excise duty or something for transferring money into the country. I need to double check and see actually what that means. Went up to 20%. Now, if there's a situation where you earn money in another country and you just want to transfer it into this country, and I have to pay 20% of that money to the government for some reason, Peke, why? Just explain it to me. Who is watching the government? Because the government constantly wastes money. So they're talking about you have nowhere to hide money from the government, yet the government wastes more money than any other institution anywhere in the world. And they're the ones who are supposed to be watching your money. It's ridiculous. I mean, people need to wake up and see this. And I think more people are. Ridiculous. Ridiculous story. Okay, so born both a girl and a boy. So this is spreading. There was this thing that somebody posted online, and they were talking about how someone was talking about these different things and talking about feminism, and then I posted something with he for she, which was Emma Watson's thing, and someone was like, that turned out really well for them. This was a kind of a move. Emma Watson was an actress. She was really popular in the Harry Potter series as Hermione. She went to the United Nations and she was doing something for UN Women, this kind of program called He for She, where she was saying men need to stand up and represent for women. And someone was like, yeah, that worked really well for her, because it hasn't. But I was like, there's a lot of he-she's. That whole he-she thing has kind of spread. And people are saying transgenderism has spread. Now, if it is genetic, I don't think the higher genes of it. But there is something I might discuss in that separate video about how certain genetic traits and certain genes are getting a higher chance of being passed on now that reproduction for replacement of population isn't that high of a deal. Like, people are reproducing for different reasons than just needing more bodies that are able to be traditional male and female kind of roles. So there's nothing in that. But there's also just the ideology of people saying, oh, I am transgendered. No, the actual amount of people that actually have it genetically is very minuscule. So for people who are saying this is a big issue, we need to focus on this, and like, how privileged is your society that you supposedly dealt with all the other issues, that you can focus on 0.00000000000000001% of the population. There's probably only 10 million people in the world totally that are actually transgendered, or that are actually like hermaphroditic. I think it's hermaphroditic, where they maybe that's when they have both genitalia, or unknown, nondescript genitalia. But transgenderism, if you can find that actual genetics of it and the chemistry of it, where it's like different hormonal imbalances, that's such a small percentage. But anyway, he looks just like a man, but his genitalia tell a different story. A young man tells his story of being intersex. So I am definitely glad that this is something that's being discussed. But do I think it's as big an issue as some people are making it seem? No. And I think some people are getting hurt in it, and you see a lot of stories of people who have started taking gender reassignment therapy, and then they switch their minds. They've already taken hormones. It's already going to affect them the rest of their life. Some of them have actually gone through surgeries and changed their genitalia, and then all of a sudden it's like, some of them who are women try to switch to men. They've taken certain hormones, then they become barren. They're not going to be able to actually carry kids if they actually want to have kids later. So some messed up things in that. Okay, humor as Uhuru faces social media fury over VAT law. VAT is just value added tax. This is just taxations after doing things. So yeah, it's anyway. And this is one thing they were talking about. If you guys are in the United States of America and you're wondering why there's different issues with like tariffs and things like that, is because in the United States of America, in some countries, they have the tax already on the things, and then it's taxed already here in the United States of America or something, then they ship it over there. And then in Europe, there's also value added tax that's added to it. So the American things are already more expensive because they have to pay the actual taxes here on the goods that they're taking. Yet when the value added tax of the things in Europe is actually transferred here, the value added tax isn't actually put on the people who are creating the things, the widgets and the products and the goods in Europe, and it comes here and it's just a regular taxation, so they don't have to pay double tax. So when you have value added tax and you come and you transfer something from a country that doesn't have value added tax or something, the trade between those countries can be imbalanced. That is a very shoddy kind of explanation for that, but that's very just skeleton kind of thing. So correct me if I'm wrong, of course, on that, because I'm not an economist. I am listening to Man, Economy, and State, and it's an amazing book by Rothbard. You should definitely check it out if you can. So in a span of a year when likes dotted his post, tables have turned for the man who swept into power in 2013 through, among other strategies, capturing the imaginations of the voting base and strategic imaging strategic imaging and messaging. Find out why. So definitely African politicians, I think, have definitely jumped up on this. At least Kenyan politicians, in my opinion, are very big on social media. They have very big social media followings. That might be a series to kind of just show you guys some of the postings, or just go to like a different politicians' page and just test their social media skills. Because some have been horrible. Like Hillary Clinton was horrible on social media. Donald Trump, of course, was amazing. Barack Obama was amazing before him. And I think Barack Obama was somebody who definitely broke new ground on social media, although he did come up in the social media age. And he was the first one, I think, to really take that to another level. Okay, Kenya's women's volleyball team writes history. Captain Mercy Moaim leads from the front by scoring 24 points as the national team Malkia strikers humiliate Kazakhstan by straight sets of 25-23, 25-22, and 25-21 in their opening World Volleyball Championship Group D match in Japan. So good for them. And one really good thing I'm seeing here in Kenya is sports are becoming a lot bigger. Here are this volleyball team. They're becoming bigger. People are following them a lot more. We're getting to situations where some athletes can actually be professional athletes. You're seeing all this situation where even the ones who would be runners in the Olympics, getting all these records, beating all these things, would still have to come back to Kenya and have a regular job or have a more typical job, because there was no leagues, there was no structure to actually pay them enough. And that's why you see some countries poaching people. That's why you see people being moved. All of a sudden, it's like someone like Mo Farah, I think, was he was either Kenyan or like Somalian or something, but now he's a runner for United Kingdom, because they can live with that. If you have certain abilities and you can move to another country that's going to pay you, feed your family, and raise your family, more power to you. I don't have any issue with that. Mourinho crying. I don't know if he's crying at the actual game, but I guess there's issues there with that. But anyway, so that's just it for today. Sports pages in the back. Football is a big thing here in Kenya, and they mostly follow the They mostly follow the Premiership, the Premier League. I think that's another influence from the effect of being a British colony. But so power of Kenya's deep state, or maybe the story about the social media. Anyway, if there's a story that you've seen here that you want me to go more into, let me know, and I might do that during this week coming up if I get the time. If not, there may be a story. I think this deep state one is something that I am going to read, at least for myself. If I find it interesting enough, I might decide to just read it as a video. But that's it for now, and like, share, and subscribe. I still got links to my t-shirt store. There will be more t-shirts and merch coming up. And thanks a lot for this. Thanks to my friend, I'm going to name drop here, my friend Derek, for actually hosting me in Seattle. It was really amazing. And this is the thing. The biggest thing for me right now from my channel is the thing that I've missed from not making videos is the conversations that we'd have. Occasionally I get some notification somebody has discussed or commented on a previous video. But that's the biggest thing. If you can't share, if you can't give some suggestions, just write something in the comment section, see if we can interact. Let me know what you guys think about these things. To me, that's currently what I'm getting the best out of this, and I'll be trying to gain some more things from what I'm doing here, share with you guys some more things that I consider valuable, so we can have a good win-win kind of exchange of information and experience and continue this whole process. But that's it for now. So that was the Sunday Standard, Sunday Nation, September 30th, here in Nairobi, Kenya, and goodbye.